Apex Legends Season 21 has arrived, and today we're going to rank where every single Legend's overall power lies. As with every season, this is all just my opinion from my thousands of hours in game, and what you prioritize might be different than what I or someone else does. Just know that basically every Legend is viable, and let's get to it. There's a few Legends in D tier which I deem to be not bad, but are a little underwhelming. Mirage is once again locking in my bottom spot. Mirage has a lot of fun in his kit, and there has been more viability than ever due to the amount of decoys and ultimates you can get. But at the end of the day, Mirage's fundamental flaws are still there. Mirage does not bring much to the team outside of a rarely needed invisible revive, and if you are looking for a fragging Legend or a playmaker, he's not really that. He's absolutely higher than D for pubs, so keep that in mind. But when it does come to the larger picture of Apex, his decoys are easy to identify for a more experienced player. Rounding out D tier, we are going to have the long forgotten powerhouse Seer. Seer still has some mild capability to relay intel to his team via his passive and stopping ability usage. Can be nice, but for the most part, Bloodhound and other intel gathering Legends are way more usable from a gameplay perspective. There's nothing really wrong with Seer, it's just that his time to shine has been long gone for a while. I would not mind him seeing some sort of small buff to the tactical to make him a little bit more usable in fights. We've got a few Legends in the C tier of fine. These characters I don't think really need a buff like those in D, but they are Legends that maybe could use a little tweak or two. Ballistic saw some nice Season 21 buffs that involve his Legend upgrades and his passive sling weapon, but for the most part, these changes don't really affect his baseline power or usefulness. Yes, his tactical can also do more damage, and it gives you a nice speed boost, which is great when you are pushing teams, but it's not going to be as noticeable as, say, Bangalore's double time is. Overall, if you want to pub it out, take lots of fights, then Ballistic is a solid pick. I just find that what he provides is rarely needed or necessary, and from a team perspective, he doesn't add as much as many of the other dedicated support or even controller Legends can. Ashe saw a much welcomed adjustment in Season 21, with her tactical now being used on her offhand, allowing Ashe to shoot and snare enemies at the same time. While this change has been long needed, it isn't really going to change her base power. Ashe, I think, is a little underrated when it comes to how strong her ultimate is to rotate and make some great plays, but her passive and even her tactical are still weak and underwhelming. I'd love to see her ultimate get a buff to push her just a little bit deeper into the meta, but for now, she isn't too bad. There are just better choices. Our final C tier Legend is going to be Vantage. Vantage is similar to the previous Legends where everything she does isn't too bad, but again, there are just better options. Vantage's passive intel gathering I find to be pretty strong and underrated, whereas I think her tactical is a little slow and doesn't activate and move as fast as I think it needs to. Her ultimate is nice for consistent pressure, and it's cool to give you the option to take other weapons that are not a sniper or marksman, but for the most part, it isn't really going to change things in a big way. B tier is where we start to get a lot of Legends which I deem to be great. We begin with the drone man himself, Crypto. Crypto saw some nice quality of life buffs with his drone speed activation and a few upgrade tweaks, and I think this has continued to reinforce Crypto as not necessarily the best recon Legend, but one who can be very useful. The fact that Crypto can look at any sign now to see who's around without having to go into the drone is also a big step in the right direction to making him more useful. This means you can more or less always know if a third party is nearby. I think Crypto is a much better ranked pick than, say, Pubs, but if you want a very unique Legend and you haven't tried him in a while, definitely give him a go. There's not a lot to say about our next Legend, and it is Gibby. Gibraltar for a long time has been a great Legend. However, the increase in usage in previous season buffs to Mad Maggie, this has made his kit a little underwhelming since she and other Legends can counter the tactical dome much more easily than in the past. Still, Gibraltar is an amazing ranked Legend who can carry the squad, but I also think it's worth mentioning that with the Evo shield changes of Season 20, he isn't really that Legend who's going to be farming up Evos anymore, with the gun shield giving him free protection. Overall, if you want a solid support and thick Legend, then I would still give him a try. Octane is similar to Gibraltar where his kit is very dated. However, the recent changes to Octane's upgrades I find to be very welcomed. Doubling up on stim damage reduction means a nice 10 damage per stim, which brings him pretty much in line with how he used to be in the old Octane heydays. Octane is still a solid fragging movement in Pub Legend, but if you want to make aggressive team plays or control areas, he just isn't going to bring any of this, which you will need for ranked. Overall, I find Octane still to be very enjoyable over 20 seasons after his initial release, and his hitbox size I also find to be very generous when you are in one-on-ones. A Legend who has slipped quite a bit from the previous season is going to be Valk. When her upgrades first came out, I think she was a great pick, but with the ever-evolving meta, I think Valkyrie is just not needed. Yes, evac towers make make her ultimate pretty redundant, and her tactical I find to be nice, but also just not really needed. Her real power lies all in her passive jetpack, allowing her to maneuver in and around buildings to rapidly gain high ground, do damage, and so on, but I find even this is hard to compete with the likes of a Pathfinder Grapple or Horizon Gravity Lift. I think Valkyrie is still a great pick, but just not as useful or needed as she once was. In a similar vein to Valkyrie, we also have Revenant. This is probably my biggest surprise of the season, but with the wild amount of nerfs Revenant's ult has gotten over the past couple seasons, and with the Conduit and Rev combo nerfs this season, I can't really recommend Revenant as much as I used to. Rev still has a lot of power to flank enemies, take instant high ground, but I find his ultimate to be pretty misleading at times, where it's not as protectful as it used to be. Rev is still a B legend, meaning he has some viability, but something feels a little off with this kid these days. Next up, we have Rampart. Rampart is a pretty fair all-around legend for controlling areas, boosting damage, and being pretty tactical with her ultimate to breach into buildings or provide covering fire, but much like Gibraltar, the increase in usage between Mad Maggie's drill and Fuse means she is put in check. I think Rampart is the weaker of the controller legends, which is also going to make her harder to recommend at times. If you like LMGs, then I do think there's room for you to use her, but for the most part, I would look elsewhere for pure controllability. If you are ever looking to play with others and hate randoms, absolutely hop in my community Discord. You can ask me any Apex questions you might have as well. The amazing legends are locked up in A tier, and there are a lot of them, showing the viability of many of Apex's characters. A legend who has seen a little resurgence over the past few months is Lifeline, and I think it is for a very good reason. Lifeline is simple, effective, and useful. Whether it's pubs or ranked, Lifeline's revive can hugely be clutch, and her team healing and resource capabilities via her ultimate are absolutely needed when finding shields can be difficult. Lifeline is going to falter slightly at the top of the meta, but she is an amazing legend who I think is probably one of the best choices you can make if you are new to Apex or you are looking to be helpful to the team, but maybe you can't shoot your weapon as great as others. In a very similar avenue as Lifeline, we also have Loba. Loba has kind of flown under the radar over the past few years, but I think she continues to be a really solid pick for people who want to take out some of Apex's guesswork and just get to fighting or get better placement in ranked. Her black market will let the team speed up looting, which can be huge when you just can't find enough ammo or that last attachment. Likewise, being able to see gold and purple gear through walls can be impactful early on in games when you are trying to get geared up. Again, if you are struggling to shoot but you want to still be very useful, you really can't go wrong with Loba and her extra loot that she does bring. A legend who I believe is going to see a ton more viability this season is Fuse, and I think it is for a good reason. Not sure if I agree with the upgrade changes, but Fuse getting ring consoles is kind of a big deal, and it does give him some more ranked viability beyond what he already provided. This is of course endless pressure via his knuckle clusters and his ultimate motherload. Fuse being able to double stack nades is always just a nice bonus to making plays, and I think Fuse might be one of the biggest surprises of the season. If you are looking to farm higher damage games with his clusters, this can greatly be helpful, and when there are a lot of Caustics, Watsons, and Catalysts around, Fuse does really shine around this as well. Fuse's partner in crime is Mad Maggie, and she also gets a ton of notoriety this season as an aggressive fragging legend. She plays out very similarly to Fuse, where her drill is great at applying pressure and forcing movement. Her ultimate Wrecking Ball, since its buffs of last season, is an absolute insane playmaker where really no one is safe behind the fortification or barriers. I think her buffs to shotguns via her passive is semi-forgettable, but still a nice little add-on to have, and honestly, she doesn't really even need it. I think Mad Maggie has really come around in a big way since her Season 12 inception, and if you haven't used her in a while, you absolutely need to. A legend who has finally come back around after a pretty lackluster couple of seasons is Catalyst, and this mainly revolves around a reprioritization or distribution of her legend upgrades. Catalyst can now prioritize fortification via her passive and tactical, or they can buff up that ultimate wall in both the time it's active and the length it does go down. Being able to completely rebuild doors is also a pretty big deal, and it's going to make non-committal teams who are not completely willing to push through falter in big ways. I do think the introduction of Alter makes her fortification buff somewhat lackluster, as Alter can just bypass this with Alter in her squad. But regardless, Catalyst I think is a great legend right now, and I think she's one of my favorite solo ranked picks due to how fast she can set up and control space. Another legend with some wild changes this season is Newcastle, and he absolutely is another amazing pick at A. A Newcastle Castle fortified wall can now zap projectiles like a Watson generator, and while it's puzzling that it does this, it's pretty impactful when you might be getting run at or pushed at by enemy fuses, Mad Maggies, or just grenade spam. The interception perk lasts quite a while as well, and the additional small buffs to his tactical mobile shield speed are also just a nice little bonus on top of this. Newcastle, in my opinion, has always been one of the best legends in the game, but he kind of has that Gibraltar effect where he isn't the flashiest or most fun legend to play. Because of this, he kind of gets forgotten. Altar's big sister locks in an A placement, and this is of course Wraith. While Altar does something similar to Wraith, Wraith is still a very viable legend who brings a little bit more pure aggressiveness and escape artistry than maybe Altar does. Mainly this is because her ultimate portal is still really good at transporting the team across the battlefield, whereas Altar's ultimate is more so meant to retreat. Wraith may be dated, but her high pick rate and usage still signifies that she is a very viable legend in all modes and at all skill levels, even if she has a fraction of effectiveness that she used to have. If you want a legend with a small hitbox, she can still be very formidable in a one-on-one, and I think this is something many players do overlook. Another OG legend is Pathfinder. He also gets a solid A tier placement. Path even saw some ALGS viability this past split due to his verticality, but outside of this, Path makes a very great aggressive movement legend and team rotation legend via his ziplines. I think the damage nerf or reduction on ziplines is honestly slept on, as it can mean a difference between getting beamed and getting that clutch rotation through multiple enemy teams. Path has always been pretty decent due to his grapple, and mostly this is because the movement is not like Horizon, it's not linear, it's very atypical and non-linear, which makes him much harder to counter and predict. The biggest problem Path has is almost the opposite of Wraith, where his hitbox is absolutely massive. He is a unit, which can make him easy to take down in some straight up fights. Sticking with skirmisher legends, we also have Horizon locking in an A placement. Horizon has honestly never really been bad. It's just the continual nerfs to her kit make her harder to recommend than in the past, but she still is an upper A tier legend. Her team fighting capabilities cannot be understated, and this is of course due to her tactical lift and her passive movement, which lets her take tighter in-air turns and makes her harder to get down. I think the nerfs she has gotten are valid, as she was abused for so long, but overall, Horizon is a legend you really cannot go wrong with. I also think her black hole is mega underrated. Even if an enemy has to turn for a fraction of a second to shoot that black hole, it means they aren't shooting you, and they will have to at minimum reload and then turn their attention back to you. Overall, I think Horizon is a legend who's going to be here for a while, and I don't foresee any additional nerfs in the near future. It's time, let's talk about Season 21's brand new legend Altar, who caps out the A tier and is a borderline S tier of insane legend. Altar fits extremely well in Apex Legends' high, fast-paced action and movement, where it's almost like she has been in the game the entire time. Her passive of looting one item in a death box is quick and something every Altar should be doing to speed up their pace of play. Her tactical possibilities are still being learned and explored, but being able to breach past all fortification and make quick plays is pretty huge. Not to mention the sneaky kidnaps of players on roofs is wild. Her ultimate recall ability is somewhat useful, although I find it to be a little odd at times. This ultimate does allow a teammate to make a push play from height, much like the old days of Revenant Seth Totem, and then with some limited viability, they can retreat back to that area. I think Altars can be fairly predictable as season goes on, and I don't see her going much higher than the A tier placement I have her, but time will really tell if Apex's meta does shift around her or leaves her slightly out of the top. Insane, and some of the best legends in the game are those in S tier. You honestly cannot go wrong with any of these legends. Our first is going to be Conduit. Conduit has seen quite a few nerfs since her initial release 2 seasons ago, but her team support through her tactical temp shields is honestly too good when it does come to team fighting. Being able to keep the team going without the need to rely on shield batting or stopping to heal completely means players can be more mobile and get their lives extended. Conduit's control ability with her ultimate also gives her a very nice twist between support and control, which can be really helpful when in a team fight, or if you are trying to push an enemy squad, or if you are getting pushed. I think the fact that Conduit is a support legend also makes her so useful because you can craft teammates banners and negate some of those big losses in ranked. If you want to be the team healer, and even more so than Lifeline, I think Conduit is probably the best legend for a traditional team healing type role. Our first of 2 S tier controller legends is here, and we're going to start with Watson. Watson has a little bit of everything in her kit: shield regen, control massive amounts of area with her tactical fences, and heal up the team with her ultimate pylon or generator. When it comes down to team utility, it's hard to find a legend that can be as useful as Watson, and much like Wraith and some other smaller legends, she has a pretty small hitbox, which is definitely nice in your ones. Similar to Catalyst, Altar will negate some of Watson's control ability, but if you are looking for that premier ranked legend who can kind of just do everything, I think Watson is a one-of-a-kind legend that you do need to consider. Unlike the previous couple controller legends, Caustic is without a doubt the best controller in the game right now. Alter may be able to breach into areas and bypass Watson fences or Catalyst fortification, but no Alter can avoid Caustic's gas due to this fortification working beyond that linear plane that the other legends have to work with. Caustic's traps are great for defending and pushing teams, and his ultimate gas grenade is likewise as important for this and needed for both of these types of scenarios. Caustic has really had a roller coaster of viability in Apex, from being OP to terrible to decent again to being very amazing and a must-use legend. He had a couple nerfs to his gas this season, but for the most part, they don't really affect his baseline power. If you want a very flexible type of playstyle, then you gotta look no further than Caustic to get your optimal rank gains or even pub slaying out. I always like to have a couple legends in a god tier category, as they are the best in the game, and ironically, we have gone full circle with this category as we have two OG legends locking in the top spots. The first is Bangalore, a true all-around legend with her smokes and rolling thunder ultimate. Bangalore took forever to become a viable legend in Apex, but truthfully, she has always been lingering around the middle to the upper portion of the meta. Bang might see less viability due to the removal of the digital threat, but her double time and overall capability to support the team through makeshift cover or concealment is too good to not use and recommend. She's incredibly flexible at all scenarios that she does enter. This removal of the digital threat is where her companion, the Bloodhound, does come in. Bloodhound has a lot of usefulness right now due to the fact that we are in a can't see nothing meta, and if you drop a smoke and then pop a Bloodhound ultimate, it kind of just gives you a cheat code to run at enemy players and eliminate them. Bloodhound's ultimate is of course useful, but at its base, that tactical scan is still incredible to give the entire team instant intel and wall hacks. Be sure to let me know which legends are the best this season. A like is greatly appreciated if you enjoyed, and be sure to check out this video for more on Apex Legends meta. Happy gaming, legends.